Still one of the most intense war movies yet made. It's Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down. Let me tell you why I think this movie is great, why it's worth watching, and still considering even 20 years after its release, coming up next. Black Hawk Down is a movie I vividly remember watching in the theaters, and it's a really interesting exercise in thinking about how art interacts with its contemporary moment. This movie was made before 9/11, but it was released after 9/11, and it's about a problem, an event way before 9/11, well, a few years before, 1993. And yet, because it entered into the world after 9/11, it became, I think, part of that contemporary moment, and I think still is. The movie's based on a book. It's essentially about a raid gone wrong. The U.S. forces in Somalia circa October 1993 try to go in and extract a bunch of people they think are bad guys or terrorists. However, they're shot at. One helicopter goes down. Then there's massive problems. They, as the general says in the movie, lose the initiative. They get attacked by the entire city. And most of these guys barely get out of the hostile zone that they find themselves in.
I want ground forces to move and secure a new perimeter around that crash site. Can you guide the convoy in there?
Roger that.
We'll move quick. Whole damn city be coming down on top of them.
Viewers today have to remember this is pre-Call of Duty. I mean, if you've played Call of Duty, I'm sure you've been in the scenarios or some of the scenarios that are in this movie. Nevertheless, to see this visualized in the way it is, to me, when I saw it in the theater, my eyes were wide open. This is a visceral and heavily visual experience that will hit you emotionally. And for me, I realized when I watched this movie, I really did, what modern urban warfare was. And I knew at that point that anybody cheering on war wasn't cheering on, a version of the U.S. Civil War or some sort of grand, heroic, noble thing. They were dealing with occupation of cities and soldiers going, in the case of the United States at least, going into cities and occupying and playing peacekeeper. And it's an impossible scenario for these guys. As you see in the movie, they find themselves, they can only shoot when they're shot at. Somali women are involved here, attacking the men. And there's really no way to win. This movie is really interesting to me because it's depicting U.S. armed forces, and at the same time it's showing how tough, how noble, how courageous they are. It's also saying that the U.S. is losing or will lose in this kind of modern urban environment. The movie reminded me, or actually I discovered it after the movie, the brilliant writings of William Lind, who writes a lot about fourth generation warfare and what that means. And this movie, I think, depicts, in part at least, what he described in his work. Once we get into the Iraq War, the second Iraq War around 2003, this movie, I think, spoke to that moment, and to me, this movie is an argument against, or was an argument against, the Iraq War. Even the occupation of Afghanistan by the United States, which went on for 20 years until the year 2021, this movie tells us that there's no way to win. For sure, you could read it that way. Certainly, if there's no clear objective, there's no way to win. And if politicians are at odds with the men on the ground, or there's a complete division between them, then there's no way these soldiers can do anything but get shot at, get wounded, get killed, and then leave dirty and humiliated. The movie depicts this through the Josh Hartnett character, who's labeled an idealist early in the movie.
Sergeant Evans, you really like the skinnies?
It's not that I like him or I don't like him. I respect him.
See, what you guys fail to realize is the sergeant here is a bit of an idealist. He believes in this mission down to his very bones, don't you, Sergeant?
And as he goes through the movie, he's going to realize what real war is. A number of these smaller characters in the movie, the younger characters, one played by Orlando Bloom, for example, are going to realize what the reality of modern urban warfare is the hard way. For the viewer, though, I think this experience is great. This plays to Ridley Scott's strengths. He needs a simple formula, a predator chasing a prey as an alien, and then he does magic with visceral and visual experiences that are outstanding. Here he's got about 30 to 40 minutes of setup in this movie, and you're introduced to, it's an overkill of characters, 40 to 50 guys. It's hard to keep track of them. Most of them look alike, although a number of them became famous after this, such as Tom Hardy. After the 40-minute introduction, in a sense, then there's an hour and a half to 2 hours of warfare. And in the moment where you had Saving Private Ryan get you into the experience with the shaky cam, this is coming out of the same moment in time in film history. And this is a first-person immersive experience. To me, one of the first, maybe the first war movie experience where it was like that. Heretofore, you've had a number of scenes where you felt like you're in the action, but this movie, for an hour and a half at least, makes you feel like you're one of the U.S. soldiers, and that gives you whatever moral meaning you want out of it, but you will feel something emotionally and perhaps take a moral lesson or two, political lesson or two out of this movie. I mean, around the time of the Iraq War, there was a war on terror, but that was just a war and an abstraction or an idea, and there's no way to defeat an idea. It was just going to go on forever until they were going to lose. There's a key moment at the end of the movie with a character played by Eric Bana who makes a declaration that is startling. I mean, if you would give this declaration to the Romans or the Mongolians, even the Americans 150 years ago, it would be shocking, because what he says is the soldiers only fight for the sake of their fellow soldiers.
When I go home, people ask me, "Hey, Hoot, why do you do it, man? Why? Just some kind of war junkie?" I won't say a word. Why? They won't understand. They won't understand. It's about the men next to you. And that's it.
Take what you want from this. He might actually just mean that the soldier's duty within combat is to fight for his fellow soldier, but there's always a larger objective, and if it's not for national security, the glory of the nation, the glory of somebody, and winning honor and getting something out of the war, if there's no vision, as I think this character is articulating, then the army or nation is going to lose whatever they're trying to do. In this case, it's the U.S. trying to deal with the war on terror, or the pre-war on terror, extracting these Somalis out of Mogadishu. This movie definitely could be accused as an advertisement for the U.S. military, and its depiction of Somalis is one-sided. I think Ridley Scott was going for a one-sided Battle of Algiers here, the classic movie where you get two sides described, and Battle of Algiers definitely sides, or could be read as siding with the Algerians, those who are being occupied. Here, the Somalis being occupied, they're just a mass force coming at these men, kind of like what you see in the movie Ridley Scott did not make, Aliens. There are so many Somalis in this movie, and they all blend into a crowd. Here they just keep coming, and the Americans can't stop them. Nevertheless, I read this movie as saying an imperial force cannot continue to occupy a city. So whether that's Somalia, whether that's Syria or Iraq, or name your country, fourth-generation warfare is real, and people in the cities, if they have the will to fight, have the capability to defeat a larger, more well-armed, well-monetized force. I think the movie is preparation for all those first-player POV games that people play, Call of Duty included, and yet it still is, it's of its own era. I think this movie still looks really good in high definition. It still has an earth-shattering experience. If you turn the sound up really loud, it will impact you for sure. And I'm not sure it's celebrating anything except the individual U.S. soldier who is tough and brave, or any soldier who is tough and brave. But beyond that, it is a downer of a movie in terms of the mission and what happened. There's some great shot making, some great editing, and for Scott and his team to have, showed us the geography of the city, given us a sense of where we are in the city, plus also keeping track of these 30 to 40 U.S. soldier characters. And over the course of the movie, I feel like I get to know most of them, or understand mostly who they are. Trying to remember who they are from the beginning to the middle to the end is tough, and yet you can track them through. And the movie very deftly handles a number of very small storylines, but they're still effective in adding up to this sort of, I think, overall negative experience that this movie is depicting. For all those reasons, I do not think this is a pro-war movie, even though it could be in parts used in such a way. And I think this is a strong commentary still on U.S. foreign policy. I think U.S. presidents should still watch this, and generals and so on, to see what they're up to when they declare war, or they want to declare war on some nation or occupy some nation. What do you think of Black Hawk Down? Do you think it's great or not? I think this is one of Ridley Scott's best, maybe one of his 2 or 3 best movies, in my opinion. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.